This is Van Velding. As promised, I am back to talk about Cats. I personally liked Cats. I saw Cats like in a traveling production way back in the late 90s. And I remember being deeply confused, but fairly positively inclined towards it. So I'm not 100% on... I just let me get into it. I'm going to play some Solaris while we're doing this. I'm going to be doing the Jellicle Cats Alleyway Fuck Down. That is my nation. The brave star nation of the Jellicle Cats. Fucking down in an alley. The first thing that we do is we get the previews. I think the first one was called I Still Believe. And these movies are just excruciating. Like Shirley Kemp, Sad Disease Girl 2, Gulf Tears. Every cliche in the book is in this movie. And I have an idea. Religious inspo porn, but every fourth scene is them talking about how immigrant kids deserve to be taken from their parents. Respect. My dad said interesting to himself during this trailer, which is itself pretty interesting. The Call. Oh man. Harrison Ford is going to get outacted by a fucking dog in this movie. I almost want to see it on that value alone. I can just picture the dog turning to camera and being like, do I really have to work with this guy? And then Harrison Ford's over in the corner just licking his own balls. Because he doesn't act, is what I'm saying. He doesn't act these days. Harrison Ford doesn't. Little Women. That's cool. You know, I wish you the best. Sonic. Okay. Sonic still exists. Scooby-Doo. I think that if you were really self-aware about this self-aware origin story, you wouldn't have made it. A second Troll movie. My notes are pretty clear that I was surprised by this, despite having seen that trailer a week earlier during Rise of Skywalker. Doolittle. I was on the fence about Doolittle going into this trailer. I'd seen a bit. If you know, I've been part of a fantasy draft for movies, which included Doolittle, which included quite a bit of discussion about it. But I was still on the fence until this trailer. And that bit with the squirrel makes me pretty confident it's just going to be bad. Like, there was no middle ground on Doolittle. It was either going to be exceptional or really bad, and it's going to be really bad. Alright, so finally we get to Cats. And it's Monsters. This feels like an episode of Monsters. You remember the old TV show Monsters? Not real monsters, but the low-budget horror series Monsters. That's what it feels like to me, just right off the bat. And I went into this being kind of defensive. I like bold movies that go against the grain. We don't have enough movies that are confident about being weird. You know, that they're not confident enough to do something weird and be proud of it and own it. But here, almost instantly upon starting, I'm asking why they wouldn't have just made this movie with CGI cats instead of literal interpretations of a style created by the necessities of theater. I get that almost instantly in the movie. And that revelation was brought on by the dodgy CGI jumping scenes. Like, what the hell, guys? And I don't know much about Jellico/McCavity cats. I will continue to say Jellico cats throughout, despite realizing in retrospect that it's Jellicle. I don't fucking care. In calling Cats specifically a weird movie, some folks may have missed, 1, musical theater as a whole, 2, Cats the musical. Were you people not aware of these things? And as we get deeper into it, with Victoria being dropped off in a sack and being taken in by alley cats and trying to explore this world, I realize this is an episode of Star Trek. An outsider beams down into a new and unusual culture, and they become acquainted with it. Viewed through the lens of being a Star Trek episode, this is almost weird enough. And why is Rum Tum Tigger like 20% more CGI than everyone else? Like, I'm not the only one seeing that, right? Like, he's cute. He's totally cute, but he's way more CGI than everyone else. I don't know why. The touch of a cat being in rags when cats are all nude is peak language of television, I noted, aware of the irony that this is a movie version of a theater production. Glizabella? I think her name is Glizabella. And then after that we get James Corden doing a passable Ricky Gervais. I hope that's not insulting. I feel like it maybe is, but, it's a passable Ricky Gervais. Mongo Jerry and Rumple teaser. Like, this is an interesting way to introduce all your characters before your real plot happens. And there's going to be a real plot here, right? So, everybody called this thing horny. But what about Mr. Mistopheles being an incel? How does that square with this horny cats theory you guys have got? Oh, fuck me. Is that a fucking ether drake? Oh, cool. My scientist survived. Okay. All right. Now we know Leviathans exist. Awesome. Oh, man. Who is Old Deuteronomy? Victoria, you know they're going to sing this shit out to you. You just asked for a new song. And don't think I'm going to get teary-eyed at this lingering shot of Ian McKellen movie. The expositional cat doesn't get a name throughout any of this, I don't think. I don't think anyone ever leans over and goes, hey, Silverberry, you fucking going to tell Victoria everything about our culture? But I'm just going to call him Chad. Chad Cat. Or Chad Shat, if you're friends. I swear to God they dubbed some of these lines from Judi Dench. Like, respect to Judi Dench, apparently she was in the original Broadway version, but I just don't think she's punching in the same weight category, singing-wise, as everyone else. I mean, Memories is a really good song. I thought Memories was from Phantom, but I don't know a lot about musical theater. Outside of, Hamilton. And the producers. Anyway, but, I mean, Memories is good, and she's really, I think it's, Jennifer Hudson, I think, is singing it, and she's really good at singing. I mean, look, sometimes popular things are popular for a reason. God damn. With all the self-aggrandizing performances and shallow personalities, completely apropos for, literal felines, you could put a message about social media in here. We fucking didn't, but we could have done that. And Gus's bit was alright. And this movie almost became self-aware for a moment, with the addition of excessive special effects to support what would be a self-sufficient dramatic presentation. Like, are you hearing this, people who made Cats? Did you get the message that you put in this? Oh, fucking whatever. I kind of thought for a minute that Skimble was Chad Cat's name, but I guess not. I love the sets. I absolutely love the sets. Like, they're proportioned just right. They're cluttered, but somehow also clear. Like, you understand what the individual objects are inside of them. They serve a purpose when the cats interact with them. I just really like the sets here. I like a lot of the ideas, the basic ideas that are at work here. And I'm willing to cooperate with this movie on the execution of it. I mean, the thing is, though, is that we're doing tap dancing. And it's notable that the impressive physicality of this show, the dancing, the singing, the jumping, the tap dancing, etc., doesn't really matter when we can dub in tap sounds and stop for second takes and do all the movie production stuff. Like, you get that, right? Like, I sometimes remark on difficult things being admirable to do for their difficulty, but not being worth doing in and of themselves, as being able to fuck a pie without burning your balls in the hot pie pan. And doing Cats as a movie with overwhelming CGI is definitely fucking a pie without burning your balls in the hot pie pan. I mean, Skimble's deal is basically, I have a job, choose me. I mean, it's no mean feat, but it's not a hard sell, what we call, How you doing? 3.52 a month. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Just trying to churn out cats, because cats are work, and work is power. Okay, so why is Idris Elba's CGI the worst? Why is it the worst? Like, I know people talk about, oh, God, technology is built around white people. And, I get that. You have hand sensors that sometimes don't see black skin. You have film that's like, oh, hey, this is great film. But then it can't capture the texture and detail of black faces. Like, I think the Nintendo Wii, I don't know, one of the accessories for one of the consoles, like monitored your body, right? And then they ran it and they tested it in New York. And the person they had on hand to test it, that was part of the development team, was a black person. They're like, oh man, someone else has to test this. Because it didn't work on black people. It was built to work to detect things with white people. And people with darker skin just did not get detected. And I get all that. But that doesn't explain why Idris Elba's CGI is the worst. Like, it might be that. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. But I just don't know why his CGI is so bad. Maybe it's because he's kind of middle-aged, and so like the younger people they got for all of the other roles cut a more cat-like figure, and old Deuteronomy and Gus are underneath a lot of rags and stuff. But Idris Elba kind of breaks the rules, the language of television I was talking about, in terms of being a cat who wears clothes and then takes those clothes off, implying that he's naked. And even if we disregard the Rebel Wilson stuff, where she appears to be nude and then she unzips her skin and there's her skin with a vest over it earlier, which I liked because the entire clothing concept is kind of whatever anyway. I don't know. I feel like that language very specifically says something when someone's wearing a trench coat, just takes it off, and they don't... It feels nude, and I don't think they touched up his body in a way that would make his body look good like the other cats, not to be shallow and judgmental. Like James Corden's deal is that he's overweight. To a lesser extent, same thing with Rebel Wilson. So those characters are kind of built to be overweight, and they fill that role visually. But Idris Elba just has a dad bod, which doesn't really fit into anything. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm body shaming Idris Elba here in the middle of this Cats review. But I just don't know why it's so jarring to see him. I feel like it's more facial than that, but I do not know. Victoria, Vicky. All ideas have to be submitted to the Jellicoe Cats in the form of a song. Come on. That's what this whole movie's been about. I'm a human and I get that. And we have a scene where everyone needs to believe in the incel cat. Like, I can palpably feel the suggestion of a Chad Cat, Mephistopheles, and Veronica three-way here under the stock we do believe in fairy trope. But I'm not going to put that for points under the people who say this movie was horny. Because I don't think this is what they were talking about. But there's a lot of, like, vaguely defined societal boundaries and social bonding going on with these three. That's my take on it. I mean, Jennifer Hudson as Gazella, to wrap this thing up. Can we get this woman an award and then get her out of this movie, please? Like, there's literally everything else happening, which is bold, but acceptable. And then there's Gazella just being fucking unironically good and heartfelt. I can't get how you watch this movie and this character and come out of here making jokes about the uncanny valley and fucking horniness. I think this is the nougat inside of the chocolate. I'm not a big fan of chocolate for social context, so the nougat is the only good thing about candy. So, you know, I calls it as you sees it, I guess, but it comes across as hard-hearted and punitive to joke about the movie's weirdness in, like, that really petty way. Like, it's not objectively good, no. I think most people wouldn't like it, no. Oh, hey, look at that, it's New Friends, the Davik Silencers. They're probably going to be super cool to know, instantly close their borders to me. Blood Court, Fanatical Purifiers, right, great, fantastic. I have a bunch of cats. You are murder weevils. So that's good. Oh, look, they know someone else, too. Congratulations. We're not definitely power superior, but we're generally equivalent to them. That is comforting. I should probably make a note to self to build more ships. I don't know. That outro deserves all the shit it gets, though. The outro deserves every dollop of shit. Like, a cat is not a dog. What? Whenever people talk about adaptations, I'm out of script. Whenever people talk about adaptations of books or movies into a different format, or, you know, one thing or the other, comics especially, they're always like, oh, it wasn't loyal to the original. Oh, it wasn't. Well, it's a different format. And how stories are created is heavily dependent on the format that they're in. The original City on the Edge of Forever, classic Star Trek episode, was written to be basically a theatrical production by Harlan Ellison. And they're like, we can't do this on the budget, and he wasn't really keen on adapting it. And, but that's what it is. You have to write for your box. And by all means, write out to the edges of the box. Write, to use the cliche, right outside the box. That's great. But foundationally, if you're not going to try to question the elements of the box, if your story doesn't really demand that you leave the box, right inside of it. And whenever you adapt that story to a different format, it's going to have its own box. And you can either put that story into the new box and then just to pack it down and make it fit. I mean, you can do that, but I think you're disregarding it. I don't know if the real selling point of a story is the format in which it exists. To some extent, like Watchmen, then it's nonsensical to transform it outside of that niche. If the story is good, if the story says something which isn't tied or related in any way to the medium, then just adapt the shit out of the story and keep the message. You don't have to be slavishly dedicated to the original story. That's one thing that initially I was a little bitch about with the adaptation of the Watchmen movie, I think back in 2009. And, as I watched it and as time went on, I'm like, well, actually, you want to transform it into something that's fits for movies. The same story doesn't work. You don't have those slow, interstitial, entire fucking articles on owls that the original comics had. You can't put that into a movie. Like that, movies work on a fixed time. Time in music and movies and television shows, and they kind of just group television shows under movies. Time is a very measured factor in those things. I'm not saying it right, but those things are inextricably tied to timing and moments. Comic books and books have to create their own sense of time and their own sense of time moving, but it's much easier to put those down and pick them back up. I think it's much more natural to the format. There are literal chapter breaks, for crying out loud. So, to say, hey, no, I completely lost my thread there. Whatever. But, you have to keep the pace up. You have to keep things moving in a certain way inside of a movie. And for Watchmen especially, which is fucking ponderous, you can't adapt that faithfully to a movie. And I see Watchmen as being a very good comic book story, not necessarily some sort of meditation on the format of comic books. Maybe I just don't fucking get it. I think that recurring motifs are very easy to do. You just, find ways to put them in there. You can write your whole story and then just say motif, 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 and then tweak a little bit and fit it in there. Visually. I think people should do that. I think people should have a unity of visuals. It's fucking the same way movies should have a tone. Comic books should have a visual style. So I just see Watchmen as a really good book, not a meditation on the format of comic books. So if you want to adapt it, sure, it has to be really different. Whether you're going to do a movie or a TV show, my understanding is that the Damon Lindelof TV show, although I gave it a lot of shit before it came out, my impression is that it was pretty good. It was faithful to the idea of the original comics, but that it was its own thing and told its own story relevant to Watchmen. Again, I haven't seen a fucking second of it, so I don't know. But that's the way you do it. And if Watchmen is it's just a meditation on comic books, then fucking don't adapt it to anything. If that's how you see it, then maybe don't watch the adaptations. If it's a good story that says something that's worth saying, then, watch other people who are talented try to adapt it into something good with their own voice on again. I don't know anything about Damon Lindelof, except that he did a Watchmen movie. I've heard his name before. I'm not super... There we go. My fleet's a little bigger. I'm super into it. So anyway, I think Cats seemed to be something that was very much written inside of the box of the theater. And when you put it into almost any other format, it seems like it just does not fit in those boxes very much at all. Characters do things. I'm trying to imagine a goddamn novelization of Cats. I'm sure one exists. But could you imagine Cats with the singing and the dancing? And then they danced. And they could use a lot of words to describe the nature of the dancing. But I feel strongly as though... Well, that's good. I think I can use Sprawling Slums to actually get people. That's great. I don't have I have a lot more notes, really. I've been trying to do blogs this new year to just regularly update on what's going on. I think my last two videos have had pretty low audio. I got to fix the audio on that. So I'm going to be watching Star Trek Picard on Thursday evening with Terry as a co-host. We're going to watch it and go over it. He hasn't really co-hosted anything with me. I kind of want to do a test run, but we just haven't had time for that, which is unfortunate. So we're going to be doing Star Trek Picard, and then we're going to have that up. It'll take about a week for it to be accessible to the public. After 4 days, it's going to be accessible to Patreons, all Patreons, and the Saturday, maybe Friday afternoon, but definitely Saturday morning, it's going to be available to our senior officer Patreons by way of thanks. So that's kind of a makeup for the last month of 2019, where I kind of screwed up a little bit. But we're going to be doing 4 episodes of that. So just talking about Star Trek Picard, kind of watching it so you don't have to, so you can kind of see what it's like, and we can talk about what it's like to sign up for CBS All Access, which isn't going to be a real trick until we get to the part where I'm trying to unsign out of it. Because, well, I wouldn't put it past, companies to make it difficult to give them money. God knows, many companies have made it very difficult for me to give them money in the past. Physically difficult, like the process of performing the transaction, they've made that difficult. But, well, I wouldn't put that past CBS. I've heard enough bad things about CBS All Access. I think most will just be, the sign-up process and kind of what it's like. And then we're just going to watch Picard. And hopefully it'll be good. It looks like they're doing the thing that Enterprise did. And it's always weird how Star Trek does echoes of itself, but worse. Sometimes they do echoes of themselves, but better. But generally it feels worse. So they're going to do, I guess minor spoilers for Picard. If you feel that maybe keeping with the strong narrative conceit of this blog/movie review is something you really want to hang on to, then maybe just skip to a later time index, because I'm going to spoil it. But the deal is that there's been a 9/11 attack, but on Mars. There was apparently a short trek they put out, which is about that. Apparently Mars got 9/11, basically. And so now things is different. So I don't know if it has to do with the Romulan, the Hobeus supernova that destroyed the Romulan homeworld, or if it's about a terrorist attack on Mars, or if it's about the Borg, or if it's about robots, because we see some, rows and aisles, like a shopping cart, like a drawer of android parts. So it looks like there's going to be a girl, and she's going to be super important, and Picard's going to be all like, I got to help this girl for data reasons, maybe Borg reasons, but at least data reasons, and he's going to have to defy Starfleet and the Federation to do that or whatever. So he's going to have a whole new crew of hot young CW folks. I don't know how the CW came to define the young cast of attractive people trope, because we've been doing that literally for decades of television, and I don't know how the CW got credit for that, blame for that, but regardless, you're gonna do that. I don't know, it might be all right. I mean, basically the whole thing's going to be on Patrick Stewart's shoulders. I'm sure a lot of us are going to shoulder past a lot of mediocre actors and mediocre characters and mediocre acting to watch maybe Patrick Stewart do something good that we've liked him to do. I don't think it's going to be bad. I just don't think it's going to make a lot of people who want to see something happy. I think it's got a high bar to meet. So I think the best thing to do would be to, what's this? Boop. Okay, that's like nothing at all there. Yeah. What are they? I forget what they're called, but we're not going to mess with them. So we are not interested in fighting those guys. But they're going to form a good barrier. The same way that the Marauders give me a barrier out in the east there, these guys are going to give me a border in the south, because it looks like the rest of that area is pretty much sealed off. So I've got 4 paths of egress. One goes into the Fanatical Purifiers. One goes into the... they're not the space jellyfish, nor are they the crystals. They're the amoebas, I think. And then the other one is held by the goddamn Marauders. And the last one seems to be just like a free parking. So we'll see what's up with that whenever we get to it. And a lot of what I'm doing is just preparing for the inevitable fight with the Fanatical Purifiers. Because that's going to happen. I mean, they're right. I'm gonna see if I can vie for some of those. But Atlas is good. I can't believe... It's not one of my... What they do is they spawn you 2 free planets. So I got London, Arrakis, and I think Navi. Yeah. So I begin on London, and then Navi and Arrakis are both decent planets. But Atlas is a good planet, actually. I can really settle on that, which means I have to refactor my expansion plans simply because I want those resources. I want the resources for the planet by Atlas. But what I also want to do is I also want to make sure that my empire doesn't have too much instability from having too many external connections and not having enough internal connections. If you spaghetti your empire over half the galaxy, you end up getting a lot of piracy. You end up losing a lot of cohesion. So they kind of encourage you to blob up, and it's going to be a lot of influence and a lot of alloys for me to settle this junction that I've spawned in. Happy about it, though. I think I'm in a pretty secure place. So I've been very, very fortunate. Maybe I'm getting better at this game. Not now, but maybe in general. Maybe for this run I can kind of come back in and make some better decisions on how to manage my empire than I usually do. Usually end up being a little scattered, a little all over the place. Maybe I can specialize my planets better, respec my ships a little better, maybe manage... What always happens in this game is that I go, hey, I want to do diplomacy, and then I have 50 guys, and they all have relationships with each other, and I'm like, fuck that, just do you want to be friends or not? And I make friends with him, and then he's allied with someone, or he is rivaling someone, and that ruins me somewhere else. I'm just like, But it also makes sense I have Fanatical Purifiers here. I am... actually, no, it doesn't. Are Fanatical Purifiers spiritualist militarists or xenophobe? I think they're xenophobe militarists. I think that's the issue. And I'm a xenophile. So I think I've set myself up for failure here to some extent, simply because I'm doomed to have xenophobes around me because I'm a xenophile, because that's how the game works. Which I'm not a real big fan of. I didn't realize this playing it the first couple times, is whatever ethics you choose, it's more likely that people of the opposite ethics will spawn around you. And that's another disincentive to spend your 3 ethics points, 2 in one ethics, 1 in another ethics, because it means it's more likely that whoever you get, they're going to be totally opposed to you. Whereas my understanding is if you have 3 different ethics at 1 point each, sure, someone will definitely have an opposing ethics to you, but they may have something in common with your other ethics, because I believe those are randomly derived. trying to run this on fastest mode just so I can get stuff done. Like, I'm having a lot of fun early game, doing a little bit of management, waiting on pops to grow, sending my scouts out. I have 3 science ships. Doing right now, my construction ship's busy enough. But, it's still a little slow. So you can see I got some Inigos Vapor there, which I'll be able to farm one day. One day in the distant future. Alright, so I've kind of rambled on a little bit. I send that guy out to explore deep space, and I'm going to call it. I will see you in the next video, whenever that is.